Welcome to the 3Haunted podcast, where we bring you all things horror, supernatural, folklore, mythology, and all things that go bump in the night.
Hey guys, this is your co-host Ashley Lunar Goddess, Gorilla Girl filmmaker and horror-loving cinephile. I'm just your average pun-making swearwolf that loves to explore the spookier things in life.
I'm your co-host John Thomas, paranormal investigator, super smartass, and film lover extraordinaire.
What's up, ghouls, gals, and all my paranormal pals? In today's episode, we will be talking with Eleanor Wagner, also known as the Haunted Lady. Eleanor is an author, fellow podcaster, and founder of the Lady Ghostbusters.
But first, a word from our network sponsor.
Are you looking for more awesome podcasts? Head on over to withoutyourhead.com for access to the Without Your Head podcast network, where you'll find a variety of podcasts sure to keep you entertained and coming back for more.
There we go.
Woo!
Now we got it.
Okay. It's okay, it happens. It's
been a long week.
Trust me, I know. I know.
All right, Jonathan. Bring us back.
All right, welcome back, everybody, and welcome to the show. Eleanor, it's so good to have you on here.
It's so great to be here. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm constantly pleasantly surprised by the reach of the interwebs. So stumbling across you on one of the Be a Guest, I think it was, Facebook groups, it was awesome. And you've got a lot of books out, right? You not only write paranormal books, but you write across multiple genres, correct?
I do. My first book was actually a psychological thriller, and I was in the midst of writing the second one when I took a tangent and went to True Account Hauntings, and I haven't stopped doing that since because everybody's receiving them so well. But I am still working on my psychological thriller. That's the second one, and I have a children's series coming out, hopefully by Christmas.
That's really exciting. What made you decide to start writing like the True Account Paranormals?
Okay, that's a long story.
We're here
have
for
been
it.
sensitive. I've been sensitive to spirits since I was a kid. I had a ghost in the home that I grew up in, and had experiences obviously over the years. I always liked true ghost stories, but I love ghost stories in general. Always read anything that was haunting, and then would buy the latest true accounts in towns that I would visit around the country. So it dawned on me when I had a haunted gift shop in town where I live that people might be interested in hearing about the true account hauntings in our area. So I posted it on social media to see what kind of response I would get. And the rest is history. The phone didn't stop dinging for weeks. People just kept coming out of the woodwork. I have a story. I would love to share it. And so that's how it got started. And I thought it was just going to be a book on ghosts, but it ended up, I added the other strange phenomena category to the books because I was having people talk to me about Bigfoot and UFOs and that sort of thing. So
Kind of funny how those things go hand in hand. Like we've experienced a similar thing where we have guests and we talk to people about paranormal experiences and it just like deviates to, whether it's extraterrestrial or cryptids, it like always deviates somewhere else. And I I think it's fascinating. I think it's really cool.
We definitely love our Bigfoot and our aliens here, so yeah.
I mean, I knew that there were accounts of Bigfoot, but I didn't know that there were so many in the High Point State Park where I live. And then UFOs, they were all over the place. And I'm glad that I ended up putting the other strange phenomena chapters in because it allowed me to go into different areas and topics to talk about with the other books. So I talk about near-death experiences, reincarnation, visits with deceased loved ones, that sort of thing.
And did you have to reach out to specialists to kind of be able to speak to those topics, or was that something that you had researched and you were well versed in?
I researched it. I wanted to find out more about it myself. I mean, I've always been fascinated with reincarnation. I've had past life regressions myself because I felt that I've had some connections with past lives. So researching it only educated me even more and enabled me to write it from my own perspective.
That's awesome. And how many paranormal books do you have out right now?
Sussex County Hauntings and Other Strange Phenomena, Parts 1 and 2. Warren County Hauntings and Other Strange Phenomena. And I have Sussex County Hauntings and Other Strange Phenomena, Part 3, coming out on Halloween of this year. So
Oh, congratulations.
thank you.
Happy book release.
Thank you.
And so for the counties that you're writing about the paranormal phenomena, are you going to these places and then writing about what you're experiencing? Is that what that is?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, how this is how the Lady Ghostbusters Paranormal Team was formed. I was writing about Sussex County where I live, and then all these people were coming from surrounding counties say, "Well, it's not about Sussex County, but I have a story about Warren County." So I started compiling files. So I have had this file of Warren County. I have one of Passaic County, Morris County, Orange County, Pike County, probably another two more other than that. And I'm compiling these folders with stories and will eventually be a book down the line. And so people come out saying, "Oh, I have a haunting in my home and I have this to show you. Will you bring your paranormal team?" And that's how the team was actually established.
That's really cool. And how did you meet your Lady Ghostbusters team?
As an author and an interviewer, I've met people through the process of interviewing. And the team was actually formed when I was given the opportunity to do an investigation in the Sterling Hill mines, which are located in Sussex County. The president of the mine said, "Come on in and have an investigation. I can't explain what's going on, but there's stuff going on. Why don't you bring your team in?" And I didn't have a team at the time, but I scheduled with him anyway. And I was like, "Well, I have enough time to establish one." So I've gone on plenty of ghost haunt weekends with girlfriends of mine and have met people in the industry over the years. And then I had interviewed at least like 100 people at that point. And a lot of them are just ordinary people like you and I who are sensitive to spirit. And I don't consider myself nearly as gifted as some of the people I've interviewed. I mean, some of them are like crazy cool. And I thought, well, let me ask them if they want to come on this adventure with me. And so I opened up the opportunity to some of the paranormal people I've met over the years and some of the people that I interviewed. And five of the women that I asked to come along, three of them took me up on my offer. So I think at that original investigation, we probably had about 10 of us all together because we were in the mines for like 6 hours. Really, really cool experience. In fact, the footage that we got from that particular case ended up on Paranormal Court on camera. That's how exciting it
Oh,
was.
wow.
They did a feature on us. Yeah. And from that point on, the group just took off. I mean, I've had people come and go over the course of time, but we still have like a solid core of 10 people that belong to the group. And when we have investigations around the surrounding counties, I just open it up to whoever wants to come that's on the team, and we have a go at it.
That's really neat. Have you, any of the places that you've visited, have you encountered pretty high activity where things are moving around, doors are closing, stuff like that? Or is it mostly like audible setting off like the EVP recorders and stuff like that?
It really, really depends. I mean, paranormal investigations can be quite boring, actually. You can be at a place for 6 hours and have nothing happen. You can have a lot of stuff happen. And when you have positive energy of all these people who are sensitive together, that really helps to enhance things into happening because for some reason, a spirit knows when you can sense it or hear it. And it's like they're drawn to it. And if there's 10 of you in one room, you're bound to get shit happening. So we do get EVPs and we do get photographs and we do get stuff on video, like orbs on videos. So you can have a bunch of stuff happen, nothing happen, or just a little something happen. It just kind of depends on the luck of the draw, really.
What's the longest investigation that you've been on?
Well, the longest has to have been in the mines for 6 hours. That's really like the longest. But I have been on investigations where we spent the night. So if you're going to do one day into another day, then you're talking 2 days if you consider that a long investigation because you've slept over. You know, it kind of depends. But I'd have to say consistently would have been the mining experience.
I think sleeping over counts because I feel like that's when a lot of the activity happens, at least in my
Right.
opinion. So,
I used to think that way, and I'm not going to say that I don't like doing it at night better because I just love the ambiance of the night and the whole idea of doing it in the dark. But they're out all day long. I've gone on investigations during the day and have had stuff happen and have gotten such really good stuff that it's like, oh my God, this was in the middle of the day. So it happens regardless of the time, but I like doing it at night better. Plus, we work. All of us are working people. We have regular jobs, and so this is kind of like something that we do on the side. So we leave it for like Fridays and Saturdays and the weekends. Occasional weekdays if you're doing a bar because they're open on the weekends and you don't want to be there when the people are hanging around. So
that's true.
So you said you'd had like 10, 11 people in your group.
hmm
When you
did I
guys,
have or did I do have?
you do have.
Yeah,
About how many would you say now? About that much?
yeah.
Okay. When you guys go to investigate, do you split up or do you bring a certain number of people? Because sometimes I feel having too many people kind of contaminates it a little bit. I mean, I know it definitely helps with the energy and bringing things up, especially if you're all positive. Um, but I was just curious as to like you guys split up or
It honestly depends on the group that's together. I mean, we mesh so well. Nobody's loud or pushy. We all work together. We do scout out the place and spread out in the beginning just to kind of get a feel for the mediums to see if they can sense anything, that kind of thing. But in the end, we all end up together in one room when we're trying to connect to spirit. And I've never really had a problem of it interfering with being able to find out anything really.
okay. Yeah, I came from a group that had like 12 or 13 people, and we went to Waverly Hills. And since it was so big, we split up into two groups and each took two different floors and then switched. And like you said, at the end of the night, ended up back together in one of the main spots, and then did the rest of the yeah.
Sure, we've done that too, especially if you're in like a mansion that's got like 4 floors and there's so much room. We've absolutely done that. I can never understand when I see these investigations that they post online where they have like 100 people. I can never understand that. I don't think there's a place big enough to have 100 people, but to each his own. Whatever.
Right.
I've heard people go and stuff happens, but I don't know how good, in my opinion, it could be.
I agree.
I think it could be overloading too, right? For someone who's sensitive to
I think
energy,
so.
that's like a lot of different energies all kind of vibrating at the same time. So, really trying to, I guess, tune into the space that you're in and like the specific energies attached to that space can probably get a bit overwhelming if
Sure.
you have that many people.
And don't forget the spirits, if this is happening day in and day out, they're like overwhelmed too. I love going into a place. I had a reader once say to me, I mean, this, as an author, you're going to get positive feedback and you're going to get negative feedback. And I had this one reader. I mean, she was like, the one comment was, I don't know any of these places. I don't recognize them. My reaction to that was, why do you have to know the place every time you go into it? Does it have to be like this most famous haunted place that you're going to go visit? Why can't it just be the person's house next door that's having shit thrown around all over the house and they're scared and they need help? To me, those tend to be the more active buildings because they don't have anybody coming in to find out what's going on. So usually you're the first ones in there to say, hi, you know, we're here to acknowledge you and see what it is that you're trying to tell the people that are in your place now. And we had an investigation once that we went on. It's a family residence now. It was a couple with their 2 children, and they were having a lot of stuff going on. And the husband was really scared because he was having dreams. The wife just kept having stuff moved on the kitchen, stuff breaking in the kitchen, and all that kind of stuff. We go in, and when we finally connected with spirit, we found out that the house itself had once been a tavern back in like the 1800s. And the spirit didn't like the fact that the woman was messing around in his kitchen because he never had a woman in the kitchen. It was his kitchen. And he didn't like the fact that there were children in his bar because children don't hang out in bars. So we had to explain to him that his house was no longer, I mean, his building was no longer a bar, that his house was now a house. A family lived there, and that they were taking care of his building and making it beautiful as it once was. And if they weren't there, the house was going to fall apart. So, would he please cooperate with them if she made it a point of acknowledging him and including him? Oh, okay. I mean, I'm making it in layman's terms, but just to give you an idea of this is how he reacted. He even said that there was something upstairs in the attic that he wanted her to put in the kitchen. And when we went up in the attic, we ended up finding like these old, um, they were like medicinal type bottles. I'm not exactly sure what they were, but he wanted her to take them down and put them in the kitchen. She said, okay, I'll put them in the kitchen. And we found out his name. His name was Hoyt. I can't remember what his first name, but the last name was Hoyt. We actually went to the cemetery down the road and found his grave, which was kind of cool to connect the name to the building and all that and then find out who it was. But when I checked back with her several months later just to make sure everything was fine, and she said, yeah, everything's been good. So the fact that he realized that they were in his space and why, because he was dead, and explaining to him that they were beautifying his building and loved it just as much as he did, but they were including him also, fixed the situation. In addition, he didn't want to move into the light. We always try and move them into the light if we can. But if they don't want to go, you got to try and get everybody on the same page. And so I really felt like after we left that particular spot, we had done the best that we could to make everybody happy.
I love that you followed up with her to see how things were going, because I feel like, when we read about things or we watch things on TV, we don't really get the, hey, how are things going months after the investigation. So I love that there was the
Yeah.
thoughtfulness on, hey, is everything good?
Sometimes people get traumatized by this. I mean, sometimes people are caught totally unawares because they've never believed in this stuff before. And now they've moved into a building where all this stuff is happening. And they're really frightened by it. So you want to try and help them as much as you can and say, yeah, it is real, and but we'll try and do what we can to help you. And it makes me happy to find out that we've made another believer out of somebody. But you feel bad about the situation that they're in, and it's good when you're able to help them and like I said, get everybody on the same page.
It is real is not Ashley's favorite sentence. Ashley doesn't like to hear it is real.
Well, my experience when I was a kid, when I had that ghost that I lived with in the house, I was like, I think 7 when I first saw him. I was terrified. I was so frightened, and I didn't have parents. I don't think my parents believed or disbelieved. They were old Europeans, and they'd never experienced anything like that. And to my mom, it was like, oh, you're just dreaming, and I wasn't dreaming. Then I used to have premonitions when I was a kid too. And she used to say, oh, it was just a dream. And then one time I had a really scary premonition. She told me it was a nightmare. And then it ended up coming true. And that was even scarier. So here I was, this young kid, blaming myself for what happened. And so I kind of shut down at that point. And I think that because of that, I shut down any kind of gift that I had, and it didn't get reawakened in me until the day my dad died. And when he came to me and he told me he was gone, then I was like, oh wow, I really got something going on here, and maybe I should try and find out what it is, and maybe I can use it to help people and ghosts somehow. And I've been a writer since I was in the 7th grade. So I thought, well, maybe I can do it with my writing, and one thing just led to another, and I fell into my niche, I guess I could say. But where I was going with this is that I was afraid of that ghost because I didn't know or understand it until I was older. And I realized that he knew I could see him and was just trying to get my attention. And I wasn't listening. And if I could actually go back to that house now and say to him, I'm sorry, I didn't listen, I would, but I can't. So that's the sad part of it. But I can acknowledge other spirit and tell them that I'm there to help them if they want me to. And so I guess I'm kind of making up for that earlier transgression, so to speak.
Do you still, now that you have embraced your gifts, do you still have the ability to perceive premonitions and receive those and experience that, or is that part
No,
gone?
no. Other than like traditional deja vu, I've not been able to, which is really sad. I mean, it really is sad, but it's okay because I really feel like I have found my place in the world of paranormal and where I need to be. And I feel like I'm doing what I'm meant to do. So it is sad that I haven't been able to reconnect with that ability, but it is what it is.
I always felt like with gifts that are on the more unexplainable spectrum, non-traditional spectrum, we have them as we need them. And just like we're not the same person as we were 5 years ago or 10 years ago, I feel like our gifts probably don't stay the same. Like some of them are consistent, but even those evolve and grow and go dormant and activate as we need them. And so maybe that was just one that was there for you at that moment in time.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. I feel like when something is meant to happen, it will happen. And I feel like even all these years have gone by. I mean, when my dad came to me, I was 30 at the time. So I'm over 50 now. And it took me that long from that day with my dad. And I've had many experiences since then. But it was that awakening that said, okay, now you really got to learn. Because it's like dad was telling me almost. He was telling me, but he didn't tell me. You know what I mean? And so from that point on, I just kept learning and reading everything I could get my hands on it, on the subject. And I really didn't know where I was going with it. I just knew I wanted to learn more. And then, like I said, I've been writing since the seventh grade. I didn't publish my first book until 2015, which is the strangest thing because I was a mom. I raised my girls. When they were finally up and out of the house and I had my time, that's when I published my first book. And it just took off from there. Like I wrote the first book and then Sussex County Hauntings happened. And it hasn't stopped since. I haven't stopped since. It's just led from one thing to another. So everything has its place and time. And if it meant for me to be 50 before I was going to have my time, then so be it. I'm jumping in head first.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people they do ignore or reject what their instinct is telling them is like that next step or that path or that one. I think we have a lot of doorways, but that one doorway that's really just that's going to be good for that vibe and that journey for us. And I do believe that when people just say, "Okay, screw it," I'm embracing it. It's scary. It's unnerving and I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going for it. And we actually like open that door and listen to that instinct. I feel like that's when all the synchronicities start to fall in place. Things that it's like, I
Yeah.
have
And I'm
no
still
idea.
scared.
Yeah. It's always
I'm
scary.
still scared. Like I'm not so scared going into. You have to remember, I'm the author,
Hmm.
so these people have reached out to me and they've shared with me their account. So I'm privy to everything going on before we get in there. I don't tell anybody on the team what's going on because they want to figure it out themselves, so we can corroborate what I already know. So I'm privy to all this stuff beforehand, and I know if something's going to be scary before I go in, and sometimes I'm afraid going in, and I'm not as experienced as some of the people on my team are. Some of them have like 30 or 40 years experience. So I kind of like let them run the show. Like you lead me because I don't feel comfortable enough doing it myself. So, but the thing of it is that, everybody on the team knows that I'm the writer, and they know that we're going in there, and I'm going to end up ultimately writing a chapter about whatever it is that we unfold. But like I said, they don't want to know what's going on because they want to figure it out themselves. And I love that too, because for me, when we go into something and they figure out something that I already know is happening, for me that's like, whoa, they figured it out. It's not like ESP. It's not like I sent them the message in my brain. They actually saw it happen. We went on an investigation one at this Elks Lodge, and I knew about everything that was going on. I knew specific things that had happened, and I had actually one of she's been with my team now almost a year, but she was one of the newer members at the time, and she wasn't as confident in herself either. Like She had had experiences her entire life, but she had never really gone on a team effort. She'd done things on her own. And this is the first experience she had working with a team. But we clicked and I really liked her. And I said, why don't you come? And she was like, I'd like that. So she did. And we went into this Elks Club and she started picking up on stuff. And she was blowing everybody else away out of the water. And she was like, I don't know if I should even say this. I said, you got to say whatever comes to your mind, because as silly as it sounds, it's going to make sense. I promise you. And she hit on so much stuff that it corroborated the stories that the members of the Elks Lodge were already experiencing. And some of them were identical to things that had happened to other members. So I love when that happens.
I'm still too scared to go on like full-blown paranormal investigations. They just got me. They just convinced me to go to like this haunted Airbnb near me. And
oh, really?
yeah, and it was probably
where are you located?
I'm outside of San Francisco, and the Airbnb is in Sacramento, or near Sacramento.
What's it called?
Bethany's Home Sweet Haunted Home.
Bethany's.
She knows it. Look at so that funny. Small haunted world.
Oh my God! I just interviewed awesome. I just interviewed Elsie for my podcast, but you're the third person that I've spoken to in this last week that has gone to her haunted B&B, and that's why I asked, where are you located, and it ends up being Bethany's. It's just so funny.
You know what? There's this belief that if you hear something 3 times, it's a manifestation of something you're supposed to be paid attention to. Oh. So if you've heard Bethany's Home Sweet Haunted Home 3 times, no, but there may be something there.
California anytime soon. Oh well, I interviewed her for my podcast, so that's probably what it is. Maybe
that's pretty cool.
It could,
or maybe there's a haunted Airbnb in your area that's like related.
We're going to Penhurst, if you've ever heard of it. It's a mental asylum.
So jealous.
And yeah, we're going in November, and I'm terrified. I mean, I haven't told the other team members. I just kind of said a smidgen of it to my friend Joe, and he's like, "Yeah, it'll be all right. You're not nervous, are you?" No, I'll be fine. And I'm like, shaking. I'm really freaking out.
What's Penhurst?
Yeah, it's an abandoned mental asylum.
But he said, he's like, that's so jealous. Like, is it well known for what kind of activity? Like,
yeah, I think it is. Oh, yeah. I think it is.
It's on my bucket list. I need to get there.
Is it really? Yeah.
So
yes. I am nervous, though. I really am nervous, but I'll be fine. I'll be with the group, so we'll be good. I've never done anything like this before. I'm used to like the at home kind of things that we've been doing. The small little. And this is going to be huge, so I'm nervous. How did you like Bethany's, though? It's very active, very, very active.
So that's what they say. I went, and I think I would like to spend more time there because I didn't spend as much as they had a couple of people from the Paramigos. They had her friends because she was celebrating her birthday weekend, and I didn't experience as much as I think the level of activity they say. But I did see some things that were like, okay, and hear and feel some things that I was like, I think there's more. I would like to go back and stay a little bit longer because she had offered for me to stay the night. And I was like, oh,
that was nice.
Well, I was like, oh, heck no. Nope, I'm good. But now that I've been there and I've been around the house for a while, for a few hours and kind of settled in, felt a little bit more comfortable what I'm around. I was like, okay, I'd like to go back and spend more time, see what I can find. And I found more of what I experienced occurred when there were less people around. At some point I had heard, this woman laughing echo up from the basement. And it's like, oh, there's no one down there. And I thought maybe I just misheard, but then someone else from the Paramigos they were talking off in a side room. Yeah. They're like, did you hear that? And I'm like, no, yes. Oh no. But the other two didn't hear it. And I also felt something shuffle next to me, and I heard it too. I felt it and heard it when I was in the basement with Elsie, and it was just her and myself. And And when I kind of jumped and turned sideways, there's nothing there. And she looked at me like, why did she just jump? And I'm like, it's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Um,
Did she give you the background history on the house and who used to live there and stuff?
She did over time. So I was there for a few hours and she did kind
Yeah.
of give it throughout the night, and it's really neat. And I would like to, I think she also says she just posted the history of the house online too, that she's been able to research.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So I'd like to go through that.
Yeah, she's really done a lot of research on finding out, and she's found out quite a lot of things. Very interesting background.
Yeah,
For sure.
I agree. And she has done her research. So I'd like to go
Mhm.
back. And I don't know if I joked and said, I'm probably not going to stay the night there. I'll stay at the hotel down the street. And she's like, that place is more haunted. And I was like, well, okay. I'll figure it out.
That's funny.
Well, of course I'll go with you, and we can have separate rooms and all of that. That way, there's two of us, and we could cover more ground. And that way, if you get scared, I can laugh at you. I'm just kidding.
I won't sleep all night. You guys will find me in the morning in a corner, just like rocking back and forth.
Rocking back and
Oh
forth, yeah.
no.
Oh man. Yeah, I've experienced probably way too much growing up. And I always would over logic it, right? To the point where it's not logical. And tell myself, well, if it's real, and John's gotten to the point where he's like, stop saying that. I'm like, if it's real. He's like, it's real. Okay.
Mhm. Oh, so now
By now
I
you think
now
she
I
would know that it's real.
understand. Now I understand that it's real. Yeah,
Yeah, now you understand why I'm like,
it's real.
Yep.
if it's real, maybe it's real. I don't know if it's real. And he's like,
Mhm.
you know it's real.
It
You
is.
know
It
it's
is
real,
really
yeah.
hard when you have that aha moment. When you have that, and I can imagine how people who have never felt anything, and then all of a sudden they do that aha moment.
I wish I could go back and get that aha moment again, because it's just so like adrenaline pumping kind of. Well, for me it was anyway. So it's just like
Mhm.
I was excited. I was like, "Holy, yeah, this is awesome!" But
What
I know
happened
some
with
people
you,
don't have
John?
that reaction.
What was that aha moment for you?
Oh, there was a few actually. I think one of them, and this is after I'd been investigating for a while, and I've actually had things happen. But my apartment was haunted, and I've brought this up on the podcast before. But my apartment was haunted, and I was engaged to this lady. She had her kids over for the weekend, and I had gotten up in the middle of the night, and I heard laughing, and I'm like, "Why are the kids up at 2 o'clock in the morning? What's going on?" So I go down the hall and I open the door quietly because I'm gonna scare them, boo. But no, they were sleeping. And I went and I checked to make sure they weren't faking. I waited a little bit because you know how kids are. And nope, the laugh did not come from the bedroom in there. And so I booked it down the hallway, jumped up under the covers, and stayed there for a while. I'm like, all right, yep,
Okay,
this
then.
is it. Okay, cool, yeah.
Right in your own backyard.
I feel like I always got in trouble. Like I always got in trouble for the ghost stuff because the big things would happen. So like when I was younger, I was on a bed going to sleep and everybody was still awake, the adults on the next living room, and the rest of like where the bedrooms were, it was super dark, and I saw something come into the doorway and it looked like an animal, like a really big cat, but like big, and it was growling, and cats don't growl. And I remember being terrified because I was the only one in that room in the bed, and it darted under the bed, and from the size of it, it shouldn't have been a thing. Like the bed actually lifted and then slammed onto the floor. And it didn't lift, like we're not talking
Mm.
levitating, but enough like something just lifted and then dropped it. And my grandmother's house had wooden floors, so it was loud. And I was like shaking, crying at that point. And my grandmother, everybody in the other room had heard it. So it wasn't just me, right? And she came
Mhm.
into the room, and I'm like figuring out how am I getting out of this room? There's this thing under me and I'm terrified. So when she came to the room, I jumped as far as I could away from the bed towards her and ran crying into the other room. And she's yelling at me
Mm.
because she's like, I told you not to jump on the bed, and you're jumping on the bed, and I heard you. And I'm like, I
Oh,
wasn't jumping on
I
the bed.
wasn't.
But I'm jumping off the bed. And it was terrifying. But then I'm in trouble because she thought I was jumping on the bed. And then
Jumping on the bed. You think the house had a portal in it?
I have no idea.
Because it sounds like that was an elemental of some sort coming in.
I don't know what it was. And originally I thought it was she had like 7 or 8 cats. And I thought it was one of her cats. And I'm like, the cat's going to eat me, until it ran under the bed and the bed like lifted and dropped. And it was just like, that's not a cat. Cats can't do that. Because this is a big.
Did a lot of stuff like that happen in her house when you were a kid? In that house?
I was terrified of her house for such a long time because same house. Like I had been in my mom's room at the time, same room, and there was where you could see, it was like a little hallway. You could see the kind of the hallway that goes right directly into the living room. So it's like a baby hallway basically, but you can see the entrance into the living room. And I was sitting in daylight, sitting on my mom's bed, just hanging out. And my grandmother, she had this big bookcase with a bunch of like tchotchkes on it, just little, like all the tchotchkes. And I remember like I heard it like almost like shift hit the wall. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. But I don't see what's in there. So I'm just assuming someone's messing with it. And then next thing I know, it all comes crashing down. Like I saw it fall.
Oh,
and
wow.
I ran in there.
You got blamed for everything breaking.
Yeah, I run in there because I'm thinking that like maybe my brother's in there and it fell over on him. I don't know. I run in there. No one's in there. My grandma comes in from the opposite side.
Of course.
And she's like, I told you not to mess with that. And I'm like, I didn't do it. And so she didn't believe me and I got in trouble. Stuff like that happened. And a lot of like random just things like that, constant activity where I was terrified of her house. And like even now as an adult, there's 2 houses that if I have nightmares about, like a place, it's those 2 houses. And I'm always like in my dream, because I can lucid dream. In my dreams, I have to like pull myself out enough to be like, this isn't real. You don't live there anymore, because I'm just so terrified of those spaces.
I would just love to go back to that place and find out if the people that are in the house now are experiencing something.
That'd be interesting.
Because I find it fascinating when I do connect one haunting to another, and it's like they're all happening in this one place. And sometimes they're similar, sometimes they're not. It's the strangest thing, but it's cool when other people are going in and having experiences and they're not even related to you in one way, shape, or another. You know,
the second house that I'm terrified of, I actually just had a dream about it. Like I think last night or the night before. And I'm like, oh no, not again. But that house, my mom, we had like, it was sold and it had been years after we had moved out of it. The owner of the house contacted my mom and asked if we had experienced anything. And they started describing, because she didn't believe me. I had told her about everything that happened while we lived there, and she didn't believe me.
Wow.
And so when they called her and they explained everything that their kid was going through that was my age, she asked, which room is his?
Wow.
Yeah, and she asked, which room is his? And when they told her, she's like, oh boy.
Did she come back to you, your mom, then at that point and say, I'm sorry, Ashley, I didn't believe you?
Yeah, she actually called me and said, you're a ghost magnet. And I was like, so you believe me now? Every house that I've told you? Because it wasn't every house or every space that we lived in that I had activity experience.
Sure, but it was ones that you were experiencing stuff in and you were able to say it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she, at that point, she did tell me, I believe you.
Oh, good. Because I feel like that's important that she do that, because I think you needed that confirmation also.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and it's hard when you don't, like, nobody believes you.
You've been feeling this your entire life and nobody believes you. Exactly.
It's like,
exactly.
It's like, I'm just going to stop telling people because nobody believes you. And part of me didn't want, like, my grandmother to believe me because I didn't want her to blame me. Like, I didn't do it, but I didn't want her to believe me because she very much is in a faith that if a child is surrounded by supernatural activity, they're...
Oh.
Yeah. then there's
They're not good.
something
Oh,
demonic
yeah.
or like, and
Yeah.
then the rituals around that are terrifying because it's very like it's a Hispanic based, but like the prayer circles are they're scary. You have a bunch of
Oh, boy.
strangers, like
Yeah.
and so I was like, well, I don't think I want her to believe me because I don't want to go through that.
Is Grandma still with
Mhm.
us? She is. So, how does she feel about you being involved in all this stuff now?
I don't even know. Like, I know she knows I have a podcast and we talk about all sorts of things. I think she just doesn't even like acknowledge that. Yeah, she's like, "Oh, you have a podcast? You should do a podcast about my life story." And I'm like, "Okay."
Okay.
Sure, grandma. But more and more my family as a whole, because growing up, and John, he knows this, but like growing up, my family very much like the extended and all of that. It's funny that they believe in the supernatural to an extent, but the idea of ghosts you don't talk about, and hauntings are not talked about. And so it's interesting now, like especially gifts, like sensing things, sensing energies, sensing spirits, like you don't
Isn't
talk
that
about that.
strange how some people in some backgrounds and some religions embrace that and they nurture their children in these things because they realize how special that is while others run from it
Hmm.
and don't want to even talk about it. It's so amazing how it's very different. And even now being able to openly discuss this, 10 years ago, it wasn't so easy. 10 years ago, you still had to be afraid that somebody was going to think you were crazy or you were making it up. So we've come a long way in that respect, but it really is a huge difference in some arenas as opposed to others.
Yeah, I think it's hard to shift even though the world has shifted, because you grow, like for me, growing up that long, being like told, no, nope, you didn't see that, don't, nope, you don't talk about it, and then getting to a space where, yep, you can talk about it. Because even now I hold myself back because it's like, oh, they're going to think I'm crazy. Oh, I'm going to be like, what if they do believe me? Sometimes I'm like, what am I more scared of? That they do believe me, or that they think I'm crazy and they don't believe me?
That's why it's important to talk to a lot of like-minded people who have near-death experiences. They join near-death experience groups. People have seen UFOs and feel like they've been taken or have had strange experiences. Join groups where they can talk to like-minded people. That's why it's important for you to engage with other people who have experienced the same thing that you have or won't hold it against you, that want to talk about, that want to learn, because it's really bad to be around the negativity and people who are going to put you down. And, nobody deserves that. You deserve to be heard.
I love that podcasts became a thing for that like precise reason. It's kind of hard to find that community prior to the paranormal podcasts, and now you see just like paranormal groups, paranormal podcast stations. I think you're part of one, aren't you? A paranormal podcast
The
station.
Paranormal UK Radio
Hmm.
Network and Coast to
Yeah.
Coast Entertainment.
Yeah, it's connecting those communities. I mean, look, you just had Elsie on,
Mm-hmm.
and I just went to her house. I love that it's creating that, because it is creating a space where I can start to feel more comfortable talking about these things and feeling like, you know what? It is okay to talk about that stuff. And people might think I'm weird, but that's okay too.
Mm-hmm. Hey, people are weird for other reasons, so
This is true. This is
we could
just
be
my
weird.
weird.
We could be paranormally weird. So what?
Paranormally strange. I like it. I like the way you think.
There you go.
And you have multiple podcasts and you're part of a few stations. So how did that come about for you?
I was authoring the books, and a friend of mine had planted the seed. You should do a podcast. I'm like, really? Why? And she kind of gave me all the reasons why. So she planted that seed. And I work in kindergarten during the school year. So when I'm off during the summer, when I should be having another job because we don't get paid during the summer, and teachers don't get paid during the summer. So we either don't get paid or we get another job. I'm fortunate enough that my husband is a teacher and he works during the summer. So I'm able to take off and do my authoring. And I use the summers to learn new things. And I took a summer out to learn how to do a podcast. And I reached out to somebody that I had interviewed and worked with in the paranormal area who had his own podcast and said, can you kind of coach me and help me? And he was an abundance of information and told me which equipment to buy, helped me set it up, taught me how to use it. I mean, he might as well have been sitting right next to me. That's how much he helped me. And at one point he said to me, my network is always looking for new shows. And that was another seed that was planted. See, nothing's a coincidence. Everything happens for a reason. And it stayed with me. And I said to him, I said, Mark, who do I pitch my idea to? He goes, me. I own half the network. So I'm like, okay, great. So I told him what I wanted to do. And he's like, I love it. Let's do it. So Eleanor Wagner's Strange and Scary World out of the Paranormal UK Radio Network was formed. And I started that in September of 2021. And I made my year this past September. So I did my year episode. Then in April, I get this email message from Coast to Coast. Would you be interested in doing a live show? So I'm already overwhelmed and inundated. And now they're asking me, you want to do a live show? And that seed is planted. And I'm thinking, okay, we'll do a live show. So Eleanor Wagner's Creepin' It Real was formed on the Coast to Coast Entertainment Network. And I do them on off weeks. So one week it's Paranormal UK and the next week it's the live show. But I'm actually having a lot of fun because the strange and scary, I just do all sorts of strange and scary topics. And then with the live show, I interview paranormal groups from all over the world, all over the country. And they come onto the show and they talk about their investigations and they bring evidence with them that we share with the audience. So it's a little different in that respect. But I'm loving it. I'm just meeting all these new people and learning these new things. And I'm enjoying the life.
That's pretty cool. Now I'm curious, who gave you the nickname the Haunted Lady?
It just kind of happened, just like the Lady Ghostbusters happened. I just started calling the group Lady Ghostbusters. And the next thing I know, people are around September and October. We really like to have the Haunted Lady come and talk at our library. And I'm like, before I knew it, I was the Haunted Lady. So at least in this area anyway. Okay, I'll be the Haunted Lady if you want me to be.
I feel like you need some kind of like swag, like your hoodie, the Haunted Lady.
Yeah. It's so funny because I call that feeling when I go into a building. When I go into a building and I can feel something, if it's good or if it's bad, that's the ability that I have as far as sensing spirit. I call it my foofy feeling, Foofy. And so one of my team members one time got me a shirt that says, "Are you feeling foofy?" So I'm wearing my foofy t-shirt.
I like that. I feel like the episode
Yeah.
title for this should be that foofy feeling.
People might come looking for something strange if they were looking for something foofy. I don't
This
know.
is true, but this is Eleanor Wagner's Strange and Scary World, so it works.
There you
Come
go.
to the right place. Yes.
That foofy feeling. And how do your kids, like, how does your family receive this? Are they believers or they're just supportive that you believe?
My husband's one of those believer disbelievers. We had my dad come and visit us in my home in Vernon. And I told him what happened. And he was like, we better call a priest in tomorrow. And I'm like, I'm not going to exorcise my dad. So he believes, but he doesn't believe, kind of thing. Both my daughters believe. My older daughter, they're both sensitive to spirit. My older daughter is openly receptive to it. My younger daughter is terrified. Like she's come on a few things with me before and she's had her hair pulled and her jacket pulled and she's like, nope, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. But you never know. She might change her mind down the line. I don't know. So, and if she doesn't, that's fine too. Whatever she wants. But they're very supportive, all of them, including my believer husband. They're very supportive of what I do, and they've allowed me to embrace it and go with it. And I'm very, very grateful for that because it does take a lot of time out of their lives as well. So,
I can relate to that.
yeah.
So you mentioned elementals, and We've heard that word a few times. And so I'm curious, what is an elemental?
I'm just learning myself about them. I had no clue until we did an investigation locally. The woman and her husband were renovating their old Victorian house, and they felt that they had spirits there. So we went to do an investigation, and we got deceased family members that were there. We got an elderly man spirit that was there. And then we got this thing that was masking itself as a little boy, but you could tell it was not a little boy. And I did not see this personally because I don't see spirit that way, but the mediums that were there could see it, and they were both explaining it precisely the same. And you can envision this in your head, this tiny, scraggly thing presenting itself as a boy when it's not. I mean, you can envision it, and it's creepy and not really nice either. Like, it wasn't harming us in any way, but you could tell it wasn't nice. It was keeping the male elderly spirit from talking and communicating with us. And he would get things in here and there, but it wasn't letting him. It was like strutting its stuff, like who it was. And usually, from what I'm learning, is they come through portals in areas that have portals. And I don't know what creates a portal or why there is a portal. I do know that mirrors can be portals. I know mirrors facing one another can be portals. And I know we've been on investigations in the past where we've told the homeowners, get those mirrors away from each other. Don't have them facing each other, because that could be precisely why you've got nasty stuff going on. Because a portal allows anything in, from multi-dimensional to just regular spirit. And I'm only learning all of this now, that there's just way more than I even realized. And if I have to, if I accept that there's life on other planets, and if I accept that spirit exists, I have to expect that there's a possibility that there are other dimensions and other things that are going on at the same time. That's a possibility. And I'm going to look outside the box and say, okay. And I've spoken to so many people that are educated and experienced, and they talk about this stuff, and it's just like, they're not crazy. So it could be possible. And so these elementals are from that dimensional place, and I believe they come through portals. That's just what I'm learning now. I could be wrong, but yeah. Does that explain it a little bit more for you?
I think so. Do you want to elaborate on the mirrors facing each other? I'm curious because I know if one mirror can serve as a portal, what did the two mirrors facing each other do?
It creates that portal. The
Oh,
mirrors
okay.
facing each other. An actual, just a regular mirror is not going to do that, but facing mirrors is going to create a portal.
Ah, okay.
I mean, you can have an attachment to a mirror. You can have an attachment to a piece of furniture or a piece of jewelry. Like, there are attachments. So it's not beyond the possibility that there is an attachment in a mirror. But when you have mirrors facing one another, it creates a portal for them to come through.
That reminds me of all the paranormal games and stuff that we were talking about, where it says, get these mirrors and put them together. And yep. So, told you kids, don't try this at home.
We did an investigation a couple of weeks back. This woman she's extremely sensitive to spirit. And so she's experiencing a lot of stuff. And she's in this house and she's experiencing tons of stuff. We walk into her bathroom and it's wall to wall mirrors. All of us were like, oh my God. I mean, you walk in and you could feel it. It was like, oh no, oh no. Like, but there's nothing she could do about it unless she rips the mirrors out of her bathroom, because it's wall to
The
wall
walls.
mirrors. It's like, yeah, no, thank you.
Well, holy moly. This has been awesome. I don't know. I
An
feel like an
hour
hour
goes by
flew
so
by.
quickly, right? I know.
Yeah. Eleanor, are there any projects that you'd like to speak to about what you're working on, what you have upcoming, anything you'd like to promote? I know you've got your book coming out on Halloween. That's
Yeah,
exciting.
that's really it. Everybody they can go to author eleanorwagner.com, to find out everything about Eleanor Wagner and my books. But the new one is coming out on Halloween. It's Sussex County Hauntings and Other Strange Phenomena, Part 3.
And are there any other things we'd like to share? Any final thoughts, my friends?
The paranormal is real. Ghosts are real.
Eleanor, why?
Face it, it's real.
And it's not just a small world, it's a small paranormal world, as we found out.
It's a small paranormal world. And like Eleanor said, we all have our way of being weird. This is just ours.
That's right.
Absolutely.
All right. John Thomas, bring us home.
All righty. Thank you again, Eleanor, for coming on. This has been a fantastic episode. I missed part of it because my computer froze, but hey, I'll listen to it later. And thank you to everybody who else has listened to this podcast. Holy crap. I'm going to start that over. This is why
I edit.
Yeah. I do this every time now. I don't know why. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of 3Haunted Podcast with your host. I'm John Thomas.
I am Ashley Lunar Goddess.
And if you have any episode suggestions, questions, or comments, please feel free to email us at 3hauntedpodcast@gmail.com. And like always, if you haven't done so already, please like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social medias. You don't want to miss one crazy moment.
Until next time.